see, we're waiting on John Curtis and Scott Pinnell. What's the temperature out there, Chief?
Last night it was brutal. But today the highs got up in the 50s. So I worked outside all day. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah. Did you ride your tractor like you said you were going to be?
The little tractor, yeah. I had they harvested soybeans. The neighbors have been encroaching onto the property for a while, which I guess was okay, but I had to go out and cut all the stalks down so we could plant ryegrass out there. So just dust. I mean, my ears were caked with dirt. So I told Kara, I said, the bigger tractor has to have a cab on it.
There you go.
We're negotiating. We're in negotiations.
Heater, air conditioner, radio.
Definitely a heater.
Yeah.
Did you get the cup holders I recommended?
The what?
The cup holders.
Oh, the cup holders. Yeah, they're right there. They're there.
Okay.
Yeah.
At least 6 of them if you got over 160 acres.
Okay, we're going to wait till 3 after. We got 2 more minutes. Hopefully everybody looked at the time to be on tonight. Yeah, it was pretty warm here today. Walked outside with a long sleeve shirt on. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I could have short sleeve shirts on and shorts. Yeah.
Yeah. It was in the 70s in Denver where we were.
70s?
Yeah. Low 70s. Yeah. Too warm, really.
It was near 70 here
And where's here at?
in the spring.
Oh, right here. Oh, well, that was Diane.
Yes.
Yeah, it was pretty nice when we got home, that's for sure.
Hey, John, any word from John Curtis or Scott Pinnell or?
I haven't seen them log in yet. Let me, I'll resend them an invite just to make sure they all have it.
Mike, that truck's behind the restaurant, right?
It's on the side, Chief, on the west side.
Oh, west side. Okay.
I mean, east side. I'm sorry. East side. Parked over by, there's 2 other vehicles right there.
I resent the invite to them.
Okay. We'll give it another minute. Did everybody see the parade of cars going down the highways yesterday?
Missed it.
Oh, you missed it? You hear about it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. There were
Trump,
remnants today as well.
the Trump convoy.
Oh, yeah.
They said it was like 3 miles long plus. Crazy. All right, let's go ahead and hey, John Bordoni.
Yes, sir.
Send me your daughter's phone number so I can text her, not to mess with you tonight. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully, our other council will join us in a minute. Our first item on the agenda tonight for a work session, it's November 2nd, 6:04 for the record. Work session for Idaho Springs City Council. So as we all know, the chief has given us a time frame of how much longer he's going to be with us. He gave us enough time that and thank you, Chief, and we've talked about this, that you were hired, that we want him to be in the process of his successor. I think it's only right. and to get good feedback from chief if somebody will fit or not. So what we did when we hired the chief and our administrator, Marsh, we reached out to a company called KRW. They're a professional search firm, executive search firm. At first, the council that we had then thought it was pretty pricey what we were shooting at. But when it was all said and done, as we all know, the money was worth Chris Malanka and Andy Marsh. So we reached back out to KRW since we are going to be looking for a new police chief. And they sent us, I think it's Jerry, sent us a proposal. And what we wanted to do tonight, why we wanted to get this on the agenda, is to discuss it. And we have the opening at 7 o'clock. That if we decide to move forward with contracting with KRW, then we can go into a special meeting and take a vote on it real quick, and we can move forward. So I just kind of want to open it up to thoughts of council. Did you get to read the proposal and your thoughts?
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, Jim.
so and forgive my ignorance if I do have any. It seemed like a lot of money, and then reading through this was, and like I say, I wasn't here, of course, on the last term for Chief Malanka's hire. So, what they're talking about as far as the process that they hire on, is that something like that Mr. Marsh or you guys as the department heads, it's over and above that? Is that why we would opt to spend almost $15,000 for that?
Well, my feeling on this, and like I said, we thought it was very high too when we did it before, but the outcome was well worth it. And yes,
Okay.
We don't have the bandwidth to be vetting all these, and we're doing a nationwide search. This isn't just Colorado or put it on listserv or just our local platforms that we can put it out there to get interest. This will be a nationwide search. And
Sure.
As you read, it goes through the process, narrowing it down, providing us with the top 5 to 7 candidates. Let us go through those and vet those. They spend a lot of time throwing the ones that said out. And these people, another thing that I like about them is they'll know within the first 2 paragraphs if somebody's going to fit, And I don't remember,
Sure.
Chief, do you remember how many applicants we received when you applied? How many?
Yes, 74 applicants.
Jeez. So
Wow.
70, yeah.
Wow.
And then what they did is they gave us 3 tiers. They gave us about 15 names in 3 different tiers. And we kind of went through those 3 tiers and realized that first tier, I think we may even pulled somebody from tier 2 and put them into the tier 1. And that's when we scheduled the panel interviews for the applicants. So yeah, that was 72. That's,
Wow.
that's a lot. And to have the knowledge, to make sure that they have all the qualifications and understand the position. Jerry has a background in, where did I see it? Jerry.
Yeah, I
There's
read
a
through that.
background and, well, I got my packet out of order here. Let's see, Jerry. Past president of the Police Executive Research Forum and former chair of the National Television Law Enforcement. So somebody like that, he knows what's going on. So
Sure. And then, Mayor, real fast, 2 more quick ones. Did you get a more detailed, cost breakdown of, it's pretty vague for a big amount of a big dollar amount of 13,000 of, what that is, which is fine if that's what, if that's what we were charged last time and stuff too. But just saying, if I filled out a $13,000 bill on whatever it was. Somebody would have to, obviously it'd be broke down, either an hourly fee or something like that. Maybe we're just not seeing that. And then second question, and sorry I didn't give you a chance to answer that, but I wanted to ask the chief if he's allowed to answer this. Chief, is there anybody from inside the department that's showing interest in your position, sir?
Well, I think there are people that would love to be the chief of police and work for you and the city. But to be honest with you, I don't think anybody has risen to the level where they could be competitive.
Gotcha.
They're just, we've got guys that are wonderful leaders. They're formal or informal leaders, but they're essentially in a lead or first level supervisor role. And I'll be honest with you, the best qualified person there is my second, and he's already been a chief, and
Right.
he likes where he's at.
Sure.
Yep.
Cool. Well, Chris, thank you. Thanks for answering that. Thanks for all you've done for the city, the community, us personally as well. And, the best on your next quest. Somebody's got pretty big shoes to fill, I think, sir.
Thank you, Jim. You've been a great partner too.
Thank you.
I have a question. It's probably more for Chief, and that is the time frame here. It looks like the headhunters are looking at late January, mid-February for having a finalist. And do you feel comfortable with that time frame? And I'm just basing it on I assume there's going to be some amount of time where you're going to hand the torch off to them.
I'm sorry, was that for me, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what I've agreed to do, March 1st is my hard date. What I expressed to the mayor and Mr. Marsh is if we select somebody prior to that date, I will stay for 2 weeks free of charge to, get them acclimated. I'll be honest with you, if somebody really wants this job, they're gonna start learning everything they can even before they apply, which is what I did. Those of you that sat on my board, know I was able to answer a lot of questions about the department and the personnel. So I'll stand by that commitment. If we hire someone prior to March 1st, I'll stay for 2 weeks. And keep in mind though, I also have a job prospect out here. So, March 1st is pretty solid. So if we were able to pick somebody up in, late February, middle of February, I'd be able to fulfill that promise or that commitment to give you another 2 weeks. The only thing I would ask is that I be sworn in as a reserve officer during that period, just so I have certain protections.
And Chief, one last one. How much of an overlap period did you have when you took the job?
Actually, it was kind of a unique thing because the interim chief was actually one of my employees. So, so there were some benefits there, but I'll be honest with you, Chuck, there's no rocket science, about my job for somebody that's been doing it somewhere else. Different forms, different computer programs, but pretty much if you take away the innovations, the nuts and bolts of running the department are, not that dissimilar from running a division in a city. So for me, it was easy. Hopefully we'll select a candidate that has command experience, that it won't be that difficult. Plus, keep in mind, whoever we hire, hopefully they will bring their own innovations that aren't, part of our current programs, so we can move the department forward.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns?
Just about the KRW, I guess it is, or the headhunter. I was so impressed with them the first time. I was very skeptical, Jim. I really was, and with the price. And the fact is that I think, considering the way the time we would have spent with staff and city council, and just kind of, we have some knowledge, but nothing like these guys. I feel it's an accurate statement to say it paid in multiples, the amount they charged, and it was pretty close to what they're looking at this time. Was it not, Mike? I don't recall the exact number.
No, Andy, did you dig up the past contract that we had and see how much we were charged at that time?
I don't have that number, Mayor. I'm sorry.
So
Okay.
if I may
Well,
add
Bob-
something.
Chief,
Yes.
go ahead.
I was just going to
Yeah, if I
say,
may add
Bob, real
something,
quick.
I actually sat on the selection board for the chief in Blackhawk, and KRW had that contract. They are so thorough. The package they provided us for the candidates will, I think you'll be very satisfied with them. And something to remember, I know they list, the 4 or 5 primary individuals, but they're actually like the project or team leaders. They actually have other people that are investigating all these applicants. And they do what we do. They cull through if somebody has a criminal history. They're culled out. People with certain violations in their past might qualify, but they'd be at the bottom of the list. So I don't think we simply don't have the staffing to do what they do. And again, having sat on a selection board, I was just so impressed by the packets they put together for candidates.
Well, I appreciate that, Bob. Thank you too, because you were there, and that and obviously I respect what you say, and so thank you very much for that, Bob.
I have a question. Not being here before, is the city council as a whole, do we have any input, or we just kind of?
Yeah, they're going to be providing the packets to you, Art. So, every city does it a little different, but you're going to actually be the selection board.
Okay.
So yeah, so when they cull it down to 5, there were 5 candidates, 1 dropped out. During my final process, it was actually the city council that examined the packets, and then Mayor, what was it, like a 2-hour interview? It was first with leadership in law enforcement, and then it was close to a 2-hour interview with city council members.
It was a very thorough process. Yes, all council will get to look at the packets and make a recommendation as well. I can't remember, Andy, did the council? Yeah, the council will hire. The council will hire the department heads. So it will go to council with a vote, and that's how we would make a hire, because the council hires the department heads. Any other thoughts? And Jim, this 14th, I know it's a lot of money. Then I try to break it down. 15,000. It's going to take them 3 months to do. That's $5,000 a month. Yeah, if you break it down, it doesn't seem like it's as drowning as almost 15 grand.
Sure. Well, I appreciate the clarification on all that. I do. The packet was, it's well presented, and obviously they're selling themselves to us. But I was like, man, they did a good job until the billing part of it. And I was like, man, that's, but you and Bob and the chief, thank you. So kind of clearing all that up.
I mean, you're not alone. I had the exact same concerns, and I feel much better having that input.
Yeah, cool. All right. Thanks, Chuck.
And I'm thinking, the more I think about it, I think we were at about 11,500 to 12,000 last time. So I think it might have been a little bit less, but you talk about 5 years later here. So
yeah, sure.
Our discussion with Jerry was very good. He's very knowledgeable. Fred Renge, that did the search for us and headed up and was the leader for our search, retired shortly after we hired the chief and Andy. So we don't get him, but I'm very confident just talking to this guy. He knows what's going on. Okay, any more discussion? Now we only have, okay, so we've got 5 council members, we got 2. So what we'll do to move this forward is, after our work session, we'll move into a quick, special meeting. We'll open it up, say the pledge, take a vote, be done. Okay? Last chance for any questions about KRW and how we're going to proceed with the executive search firm. All right. Next, we will move into financial update for 2020. Lorraine, welcome with us again with council, and I'm going to give the floor to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, everyone. I'm going to try to share the screen with you to look at those financial statements. So let's see. I'm not sure how I can do that from here.
There should be a green button in the bottom of your screen. If you bring your mouse to the bottom, it's a share screen.
I found that. I'm trying to find the statements, which are also in, maybe that will.
And while we're doing that, are we going to have an opportunity to ask some questions about some of the categories where we went over budget by quite a large number? It seems like the last time we reviewed all this, no one seemed to have a concern about areas where we were year-to-date over budget by sizable amounts. To maybe at a proper time and look at some of that.
Certainly. Do you see the September financial statements now?
No. Nope.
Lorraine, would you like me to just share it and you can just tell me when to turn the page?
Yes, please. I think it's because I'm seeing it also on my Google. I can't zoom and show that at the same time for some reason.
Are you guys seeing it on my screen? Oh,
Nope. Not yet.
hold on one moment.
I'm going to try one more thing too, John. I think I may have it, but can you see it on mine now?
Yes.
Hey, yes.
All right, thank you. I'm sorry for the technical problem.
Yep, you got it, Lorraine.
Okay. All right. These are the September financial statements, and I'll just kind of run through those quickly to kind of show you where we are now. Maybe some of your questions you'd like to ask as we go, I'd be fine with that. And I'm sure Andy and whatever department heads are there could also weigh in if there's some questions. This first page we've looked at before, and it's with the combined cash accounts. So of all these, 8 or 10 accounts here, they total $7,100,000 at the end of September. And then at this section below where it says cash allocation reconciliation shows how much of that 7 million is owned by each fund. And the first line item in each fund's financial statements are going to be this amount. So the first item here, Fund 10, which is the allocation to the general fund, of $1,690,000. It's the first figure we're going to see on the general fund's balance sheet. And there it is, cash in the combined fund of $1,690,000. That's the main thing. Yes.
Would you be able to enlarge that slightly? Are you able to do that with your the plus button on the right side there? Does that work? Or no?
I'll try it. Hold on.
Just thinking maybe make it just a little bit bigger.
Oh, I see it now. Thank you. Is that better?
Yeah.
Maybe one more, maybe. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So in the general fund, you do have $1,690,000 in cash. You've got other assets and liabilities. and we're scrolling down to the bottom of the page, you see your total fund equity or fund balance at September 30th, 2020 is $1,942,000. Again, this first line item, first listing for fund balance, which shows $2,103,000, is always the amount of the prior year's ending fund balance. So this tells you that you started the 2020 with $2,103,000. You've had revenues under expenditures to the tune of $161,000. So at this point in time, you have $1,942,000 fund balance in the general fund. Then we get to the revenues expenditures, which is the more interesting part of the financial statements. And here you have most of your major revenues are in the first section, which is your taxes. As you recall, this is a fund that is a general governmental fund that's mostly supported by taxes. So of all your revenues, you've got $1,345,000 that have come in so far this year in taxes, which is 75%. If you look at that third column, I mean that ending column, and the amount in the first section, the percentage you've received of your budget so far is 75%. So that's good, since September is 3/4 of the way through the year. Looking more closely at your sales tax, which is of course of primary concern, it's your number one revenue. Your budget is $1.4 million. You've received 72% of that so far through September. And you've received roughly a little bit less than you had received last year at this time. That column, it says year-to-date actual 2019, you received $1.076 million. This year you've received $1.035 million. Both of those years are more than you got in 2018 through September. Other revenues here, the building permits, those you got a sudden increase in September that puts you up. I think you'd been running a little low, but that one is at 144% of what you had budgeted. So almost 100,000 coming in from building permits during the year so far. Your other taxes are, your other revenues are pretty much on base. You've received 80% of this other tax section through September, including 60,000 in severance taxes, which are hard to budget since they can be high one year and low the next. So that's good. You get a good one this year. Your highway users taxes come in quarterly, and you hadn't yet received the third quarter when this report was done. You'll be getting those soon. So I don't see any problems with the revenues there. Moving on to the next page, your fines are at about 70% of budget. So they're down from what you had budgeted, but not drastically down about 5% for this time of year. And your bottom line for the total fund revenue is at 77% of what was budgeted. So you're at almost 2 million, you budgeted 2,560,000.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Yeah, just kind of a sidebar question. This Tivoli lighting, it's just an artifact of something that happened in the past. And do we keep that in there forever, or do we just kind of purge this from time to time?
We will quit showing that after 2019 is gone.
Okay.
As long as we're showing that column, it's going to be there.
Okay. Is that one of the budget standards to keep it for so many years or something? And
You keep it as long as you're showing a year that included it.
okay.
We could, if you want to, roll it into miscellaneous, add 100 to the miscellaneous line and get rid of that one.
Yeah. Well, not a big deal. Just a question, but yeah, it will disappear just from longevity. So,
Right.
Okay. All right. No problem. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'll move on to the expenditures in the general fund unless there's any other questions. So these I'll just take by totals of department unless you have a specific line item question.
I do. I have several line items as we go through expenditures.
All right. Well, I'll start with streets. Through September, Wouldn't you know it, the total's on the next page. It's at 62, almost 63% of what was budgeted, with 320,000 being spent out of a $509,000 budget. So do you have any questions on this page, sir?
Page 5, item 10-10-5108. Professional services, it's over by 48%. I'm sure there's a good reason. I'm just curious why.
I'm sorry, but I don't know the detail of that off the top of my head. I can take notes of the line items and get those questions back to you, but maybe somebody there knows.
John Bordoni, would you have any idea why this other professional services is so high that we're already at 148%?
Well, it's maintenance services, things that we've had to have repaired that we didn't anticipate. If you look at the overall expenditure in streets, it's less than 65%. So out of 75% of the year, we're less than 65% spent.
And we do encourage the departments to put the expense in the line item that most closely describes what the expenditure was, even if it puts that particular line item over budget. That way you know where you really spent the money and how better to budget in the future, what's happening there. And some line items will be over and some under.
Okay.
Art, what we can do is we can go in and try to find receipts for what these payouts.
No, that's not necessary. I'm digging down to a point with these questions, and maybe when they're answered, I won't need to go dig any deeper, but there's just certain things that are popping up off different pages to me that probably are like this one that I just asked is, quite understandable. But then as we go, there's some others I have to ask for, and I'm trying to get to a point on some of this. I don't want to bore you guys, but some of them seem to be way out of line, and I'm trying to figure out why.
Okay.
A lot of those, I know you're probably looking at water and sewer. A lot of those are because of the ORC that we had to hire when Dan left, that we had to have, and that contributed to that. Wastewater, I can tell you that we've had a lot of issues with the SCADA systems, that we've had to have Browns Hill make repairs that weren't anticipated, but the majority of them that are over are due to have an ORC on board and paying that person.
Yeah, that's the only one I had for that. And then I have administration and police questions in those areas, so I'm
we'll wait till we get to
yeah, I'm just saying that was the only one I had there.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go forward, and then I can get you the detail on any of these that you want. It might be hard during the meeting, but I can do it afterwards as you wish. Then moving on to the administration, we'll go to the total first and then see what your specific questions were. This department is higher than 75% for the year. It's at 630% for the year. There may be some line items here that are paid up front, so they aren't monthly expenses, but let's see what your questions are.
So I bet Art's going to say one's going to be the other contractual services that is at 403%.
That's correct.
I
know the legal we talked about last time. My question about legal, which is 3 lines up or 4 lines up, that doesn't seem, this 132, which puts us 46% over, doesn't seem to be a yearly thing. And I think she explained it last time I asked, basically because of different legal things that were going on. So I guess, that just seems to be a blip this year compared to the previous years. But yeah, the other one, you're right, Mayor. You're reading my mind. That's not good.
And also on that 132,000, you got to remember that some of that will be reimbursed back to us.
Right.
Is that correct, Andy?
That's right. That's right.
And also, I believe I I don't know what this 579 surveying is. I have no idea.
That's for the preparing for the eventual annexation of the cemetery, the Idaho Springs Cemetery.
Okay.
Most
Well,
of
we
that.
only budgeted 1,500. That's why it's so high at 500% over.
Right.
And then under that other contractual services, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, is that where some of our planner is under that, which some of that will be a reimbursable also?
The contracted planner and the contracted finance officer, yes. And you'll see that the salaries are down there. If you scroll up a little bit there, Lorraine, you'll see that salaries are down.
Well, they are, but I guess what I'm trying to, it's not in ratio though. I mean, if people were in place, that number, the payrolls would be higher. The contractual services would be lower. Adding those two together, under normal circumstances, we wouldn't be as much out of line, correct? I mean, the contractual services, I guess that's what I'm getting at, is costing us much more than if we had a individual in place on a salary with us as an employee.
Right. I might add that under other contractual, that's where the contracted planner comes out of.
Right.
And some of that is reimbursed as well. So that would go in as a revenue in the general fund. So some of that is offset as well.
Okay. Well, just to make a long story short though, but it would still be out of line compared to if we just had a full-time employee all this time. Am I correct? Even with the reimbursement?
Well, I'm not sure. I don't know if we know what the reimbursement off this number is yet. Is that correct, Andy?
I don't have that right here, but that's right.
Okay. All right. Well, when you guys find out, if you get, and I don't need to ask any other questions on the ones I had, basically.
And I'm not sure if what the answer is for the planner, obviously, but for the finance, it's not necessarily more than having a full-time employee. Depends from month to month what is being handled, but on a general month, it may be less. I could give you more information on that as you wish.
Okay. Well, I know we're getting into busier times for the planner. I mean, I keep on hearing that. So I just want to make sure as we go into next year, if we can get an employee in place, I think we'd be financially better off. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Actually, as far as water and wastewater, it's less having a contracted employee than a full-time employee.
Okay. Well, yeah, I don't have a problem with your department at all. I'm more concerned about this other.
No, I just wanted to explain that.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
So hopeful, a couple of things with a contract planner. One, they're not here like our full-time planner. They're not talking to people all the time in the community, and working. So having a staff planner, I think, is more and much more desirable for the city as we move forward. And like you said, it's probably going to come out less money on that to have a full-time planner.
Should we move on then to the next department? Community promotion, which is below budget at this point in the year. 53% of the budget has been spent. Some of the line items that you can see there are like holiday decorating hadn't occurred yet through September, so that will go up. But doesn't seem to be issues there. Building inspector, that's a little bit higher than anticipated at 86.6%. Generally, that would fall off during the colder months, though, I expect.
I did fib. I do have one more question in that area. I apologize. Turn my
No
sheet.
problem.
Item 10-21-5038, miscellaneous organizational request. 30,000 compared to
Sure. Let me give that some context. That's a good question. In that amount, when we got the $25,000 grant from United Way for assisting individuals with expenses early on in the pandemic, we had to find a line item to where to place or where to expend that money. It went in as a revenue, of course, in the general fund, and then we expended it out of that line item. So
Okay.
$25,000 of that was from a grant, and it was just and it was turned right around and went to individuals.
Okay, all right, so basically a wash. Okay, thank you. Now I'm done, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Art.
You're welcome, sir.
Okay, we'll skip forward to the police expenditures. And again, I'm going to look at the total before we go back to the individual line items, but they are under 70%, even though it's 75% of the year has elapsed. Not any questions there.
And did you have a question under PD, Art?
Yeah, I thought I did, but I'm okay.
Then we'll move on to the court expenditures, and they're pretty close to being right on target for the year at 74%. And then there's a transfer recorded for the fire department. And again, each quarter that is sent, and evidently the September amount hadn't been set yet when these financial statements were run. Parks expenditures are totaling at 47.4%. And I imagine that much of that is due to activities that weren't done during the pandemic.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Cemetery, no action, and the police pension has not been moved yet. Usually that's a paper transaction at the end of the year. And that's it for the general fund. So when you see your total expenditures, the budget was $3,563,000, and what was expended to date was $2,139,000. So total expenditures for the general fund are at 60.1% for the year. And that's a good difference from your total revenues, which were pretty close to what you would have wanted to see. They were at 70% for the year. So that takes you through the general fund. The other funds, I'll go a little more quickly unless you want to stop me, but please do. The cemetery trust fund hasn't had any changes lately, so it's been sitting there with $9,000 and no revenues or expenses. Then we have the cemetery fund. This is the operations fund rather than the trust fund. And it also has very little happening. Revenues have come in at $976. And expenditures have been $700. So there's little activity there. The ramp fund. It started out with a fund balance of $793,000, and you're spending that down to accomplish the uses for which you received that money. And you've spent another $61,000 so far this year, more than revenues. The revenues at this point in time are pretty much just the interest that comes in on the unspent money you have in that fund. And the expenditures are shown here on your various projects for engineering and project management, mostly at this point in time. Your improvement fund, I'm going to go down to the fund equity of $4,454,000 at the beginning of the year. You've added $281,000 so far, so you're at $4,735,000 at the end of September. And here again, it's mostly tax driven, and you've been receiving your taxes a little under what was forecast, but not dramatically under. You're at 65% rather than 75% of what you'd hoped to receive for the year. Here are your expenditures. They're low as well compared to what was budgeted. But some of these budgeted amounts are transfers that have not yet taken place. And we can actually book those anytime. So I guess I'll go in and put in 3/4 of those right now, or I can start doing it monthly, Andy. So just let me know how you want me to post those transfers, and I'll get those in there.
Okay, thanks.
You've got some projects for the HS7 projects that are going on. And that's your total expenditures for the year, through the year so far. Sorry, I went too fast. Conservation Trust Fund is the lottery fund. You've added about 8,000 to your fund balance so far this year. This is the money the state shares with you, comes in every quarter, and you've gotten less than expected, although a lot often comes in for the fourth quarter with stocking stuffers and those types of lottery sales. No expenditures so far. Here's your 1% street sales tax fund. It started the year with $2.4 million. You've been spending that. And you've got $1,697,000 at the end of September. Revenues are coming in on this from the sales tax stream. You've also received a grant earlier in the year. And you've got these expenditures going out, some of which are attributable to projects being built as well, to maintenance being performed as it should have been with these funds, and an interest payment on your bonds. You'll have a principal payment of $180,000 as well before the year is over. Here's the water fund. You've got, as we've mentioned before, most of your fund equity is in these improvements that are infrastructure related of $6 million. You've got some liabilities of about $1.1 million, and you've got total fund equity at the end of September of $4.8 million. Here are your revenues. It's always good to look at your charges for services and compare them to your operating expenses. So we've got $726,000 in charges for services, which is slightly under budget for that time of year. Your usage fees coming in. You've got some revenues from a water lease, and that also seems to be behind what you would expect at 3/4 of the year. I'm not sure what the receipt schedule is on that. And then you've got some miscellaneous revenues for this to bring it to the 68% of budget on your revenues. Sorry, suddenly it will flick forward. Here are your expenditures. So here you've got your operations. It shows your salaries and contractors. And if we go down to the total, $292,000 for that. And we add in the distribution expenditures and your debt service, your year-to-date actual is $518,000, which is less than your revenues were for your charges for services. And those total expenditures even include your debt service payments through this point in the year. You haven't spent all of them yet. But I think Art had some questions about the various line items in this fund. Would you like to?
No,
Was
I'm all
that-
set. No.
Not in water, okay. Wastewater has equity of the 11 million. And again, most of that is in your capital assets. But you have had some revenues over expenditures so far this year because of grants that you've loaned.
Lorraine, you're cutting out on us. It looks like you may have froze.
Again, your charges for services are $6,000. We'll look later to see how those compare with your operating costs. And then you had the loan proceeds from the Colorado Water Resources and Here's your operational expenditures, salaries, and 355. When you add in the collections expenditures, add in your operating revenues, 429,000 as opposed to 600 and some in charges for services. So that's a good trend. Wastewater fund. Stormwater, this is your drainage. It doesn't have many of its own assets. It started with a fund balance of 127,000 and it's at 31,000 now. We'll look at that 100,000 that's changed hands. Here's the revenues, none coming in during the year, but work. Here's the water fund CIP, which is actually part of the water fund. It's a better picture. But you've got some severance taxes that come into this fund. 4,000 for the 13,800. Wastewater, again, we should combine these fund balances with the water fund, with the wastewater fund. And you've been spending down these balances during the year. Some revenues from loans and grants coming in here for
Lorraine,
to the tune of 3 million yuan.
can you hear us, Lorraine? Can you hear us? Lorraine? Hello, Lorraine?
I can now. It got hinky for a minute. Now I can hear you.
You can hear us now because you're cutting in and out. We're having a hard time hearing yours. It sounds like maybe if you did away with your video, try to just do verbal with us.
I'll try that. Might be the internet connection. Jen, maybe you can tell me what to do when I'm in this shared screen mode. I don't see the same options for those types of changes.
John?
With
It
the
may
screen
not work.
sharing, I think I have to show the video with screen sharing, right?
Yeah, I think, let me try. I'm going to stop your video here on my end. Okay.
Now
You want to try it and see how it goes?
All right, can you hear me all right here?
Yes.
Yes.
Are there any other questions about the wastewater capital improvement fund? I'll move on. We've got the pension fund. And that's, so I think that will take care of those financial statements. Be happy to answer any other questions and any further.
Okay, does anybody have any questions on our 2020 summary, our financial summary? Okay, all right. Hopefully we can hear you, Lorraine. We're gonna move down into their budget for 2021.
Okay, I will attempt to share that screen again. It went away. I don't know how to change the view on this, John.
There should be somewhere where you can rotate it.
If you hit the 3 buttons at the top right corner there, does that let you do it?
There you go. See if that. There you go.
No.
Right
You can
there.
try to.
It's right. I can't point to it. Scroll down a little bit. Scroll down a little bit. Hover over to the right corner of the screen. Lorraine.
I
Bring
am.
it- Go all the way up to the black where the black toolbar is, and see if that's a rotate button. There's
Oh,
a
yeah.
printer. There was a printer, then something else, and then maybe a rotate.
It's that little, yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Thank you. Got it. All right, well, here's the proposed budget. And as you remember from last time, we have a budget summary page. And there haven't been too many changes between the last version that you saw and this one, besides some changes to the estimated actual that have come in and some minor changes from at least one of the departments. But as you may recall, we start with the beginning fund balances, and the general fund has these 3 funds that we just looked over: the regular general fund, the cemetery, and the stormwater. So you're starting with $1.9 million, revenues of 2.5 are forecast, expenditures of 3 million, transfers in and out that net to 8,500, and then ending fund balances of $1.5 million. Then each of these special revenue funds are shown here. The Conservation Trust Fund to stay about the same, and the Street Sales Tax Fund to just slightly move up a little bit in fund balance. The RAMP Fund to continue to be drawn down as you continue to use those funds to get the street up to par and maintain it. And then the Sales Tax Improvement Fund would actually be going up during 2021. Your Water Enterprise Fund, when we add together the CIP with the regular water, would go from 960,000 in funds available to $1.2 million. And the wastewater would go from minus 390,000 to 656. So that shows a good improvement there. And then your fiduciary funds are not forecast to have any particular activity. General fund, again, as I mentioned, the big change between this view and the last view is in the estimated actual. So whereas before we didn't have any new estimates for 2020, we showed the adopted budget amounts as if they were all going to be spent as budgeted. Since then, Andy and his staff have gone through and made some changes. Certain things like the sales tax expected to decline, certain other modifications as you go down, some more, some less. As we mentioned, the building permits had started coming in a little stronger, so those got bumped up. But you'll see that most of the line items are similar. And then there's some notes off to the side that would explain any real changes. So when we get to the estimated actual revenues, the forecast in the adopted budget was 2,560,000, and the estimated actual is slightly better at 2,565,000 almost. Next year's budget is forecast at around the same. So you're really kind of showing a flattening off of your trend, which had been increasing from 2.3 in revenues to 2.7 in revenues. You budgeted down a little for 2020, and that's pretty much what happened. So good going, or what you expect still to happen, and then keeping it the same for 2021. In the expenditures by department that are shown here, again, this third line, I'll try to get the header in there, but there we go. The third line was your adopted budget, and that's what we were showing in the last version, was the same numbers. Now they're going down by about almost 200,000, So there have been a good amount of changes and savings that your staff has implemented to bring that number down to 2.82. And then next year is forecasted the same amount as last year, even though the amounts between the funds has changed. So each of your department heads has forecast for their own budgets, and the staff has done a good job to keep those totals at the $3,055,000. And again, you had a trend of 2.459, 2.7, you thought 3.0, and you're dropping back to just 2.8 as opposed to 2.7 last year, and then going, hoping that 2021 will be at what you had forecast for this year. So it looks conservative and doable from what you can see here. The transfers in and out have to do with that pension fund. They are similar each year. And your bottom line is the ending fund balance. So you started with 2.1. You kind of kept 2.1 in 2019. Your budget showed a much smaller number, but your estimated actual now is 1.8. And with that going down slightly for next year. Let me check on that. So we can look at any of the individual departments that you might wish to. Again, it's the estimated actuals that have changed between last time and this time, except for a few items that have been added or modified by the departments that don't make a dramatic change to the general fund overall. What would you wish to do, Andy? Should I go through each page, or do you think that last time's summary is fresh enough to keep these amounts in mind, or the summary page was okay?
So Mayor, I know we're at 7 o'clock when we're supposed to have the special meeting. So what's your pleasure?
You know, I think with the numbers not changing that much, would you get down to the balance of the budget to those numbers are and show the expected revenues and then what our total budget looks like for all department for the whole city.
Yes, and that's that first page. So for all the funds, we're looking at a total budget of 10 million. Ending fund balance, we're looking at a total budget of 11,768,000 in expenditures, 12,954,000 in revenues.
All right, thank you for clarifying that for me. Council, is there other departments that you want to go and look at specific line items? Any concerns or questions that we have for Lorraine?
I don't know if I'm reading this right, and I'll be quick. The hourly employees are not scheduled for a raise. Where was I?
So what we started out, Art, and what I asked Andy to do was, you know, I would like Andy to plug in a 3% across the board to see what that number is going to come up to. Every year since I've been the mayor, we've always given cost of living raise.
Right.
I know times are different now. I hate to deny because we know the cost of living is still going up, you know, with whatever's going on in our lives. But I would like Andy to get a total number so that the council can see what that number does to the budget. We don't know. I don't know if it's 30,000 or 130,000.
Okay, no, okay. That's what I'd like to see too, because I think they should be in line for that raise, in my opinion.
And with, you know, Diane, we haven't got, no, we won't get that for a few days. It's going to be interesting to see September's numbers to see where we came in.
I think they're going to be very good.
Say again, Diane?
I think they're going to be very good.
I think they're going to be pretty good too. So I think that would be what we would judge on. What does our sales tax revenue look like this next month and see how we can plug in something. I think that over the last several years, I've lobbied for a 4%. Most of the time, what we do is look at what is that index, Andy? What is that?
CPI.
Consumer Price Index, the CPI.
Yeah, CPI, Consumer Price Index. That's what we look at to kind of see where it's at. And we've been able to get 4% instead of the 3.1% or 3.4%, whatever we've seen over the years.
That 3 or 4, whatever it comes to, is not included in these numbers. Is that what you're saying? Because am I correct?
That is correct.
I think,
cost of living. Yeah, no cost of living is included in these numbers.
I don't work with these folks every day, but I see a lot of people out there doing a great job. And from my viewpoint, I think we got a good team for that.
And I would be the first to say through this pandemic, they've done a lot of, all of our employees have gone beyond the call of duty.
Right.
It would be well deserved for all of our employees at the city to get a raise.
I
And
agree.
we as council, I'm sure, all agree, and
I
we're going
do.
to do our best to make it happen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Art. Okay, any other questions? Oh, wait a minute, we got 2 new faces with us now. How did that happen? Oh, John and Scott, welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, so real quick before we get out of the work session, I want John Curtis and Scott we talked about hiring KRW. KRW is the search firm that we found Andy and Chief Malenka with. We discussed that earlier in our meeting. We discussed the price of it, almost $15,000 is a big number, but we feel, and others that felt that was involved in the hiring of Andy and Chris, that it was well worth it. They do a lot of things, a lot of process, and then they hand us over 5 to 7 of the best candidates, along with whatever 20 other ones that had resumes in also. And Chief verified, we had 74 applications last time, and we don't have the capacity or the bandwidth to process these applications, narrow it down, do the background checks, do the interview, the pre-interviews and things like that. So everybody agreed that we thought that was a good idea. And I just wanted to kind of get you informed, because that's what our special meeting is going to be about, because we want KRW, if it's voted on and then we have a majority vote, we want to sign the paper and get them on this ASAP. Any questions?
I agree. They did a excellent job. I mean, we got stuck with Chris, but so what?
Well, you know what happened is the gal from Houston dropped out. So if she had stayed in the race, she might have been your chief.
Yeah. No, they did a good job, and I'm happy with them. So I think the money's worth it, to do a good search.
Okay.
And
any questions, Scott?
No, I think we found a good chief last time.
Okay.
So
all right.
My top page said 7 o'clock, so that's
That's it. That's exactly why I'm here too.
Yeah.
Well,
second page said 6. I didn't catch that till.
But the work session page says 6.
All right, but it's not on top. So
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
very.
it is. It's just not highlighted. It's there.
yeah. So that's why.
Yeah, right. Happy hour just got over.
Yeah, I was just gonna say they were at the pub. Now they're back with us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
You
where
see
they
it
were.
right there at the
I
bottom?
know. I didn't see it.
Well, I did
and
by accident, actually. It was buried a little bit, Mike.
It was.
That's all right. That's okay. All right. We don't have to sign off, John, do we? No. All right. Let's move on. It is 7:09. This is a special meeting by the City Council of Idaho Springs, November 2nd, 2020. Can I have roll call, please?
Michael Hillman,
Here.
Scott Pennell,
Here.
Chuck Harmon,
Here.
Bob Boland,
Here.
John Curtis,
Here.
Art Cacavelli,
Here.
Jim Clark.
Here.
All right. Please stand with us for the Pledge of the Allegiance. I pledge the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay. I'll be honest, but I just lost my page one. So I need a motion.
I would move to approve the agenda for the November 2nd, 2020 meeting.
Do I have a
I
second?
second. I second.
Motion is second. Discussion. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll move on. Do I have a motion?
I would move to approve the proposal and letter of agreement with, or from KRW Associates in the amount of $14,800 for recruitment and selection process for a new police chief.
Do I have a second? Got a motion and I believe Art was a second. Discussion. Any other comments or ideas that you might want to throw out before we take a vote on this?
Who's going to sit down with the whole board with KRW, or is it going to be just a personnel committee?
Well, what we'll have is an interview panel, and that will involve people that are on our personnel committee. The ultimate of the hiring, of course, goes to council for a vote, because council hires. So it'll go from interview panel. So as I said, they'll bring back probably in 3 different tiers of 5 or 6 each tier to rank our applicants. And then what we'll do is we'll go through those. I believe it says in here doing a public outreach. Of course, we don't know how that's going to go. It's probably going to have to be done by Zoom. I don't see by the first of the year or February that we're going to be anywhere near being able to do a gathering or a social gathering. We would love to bring the community in. We'll have to do it by Zoom, but just to get some feedback and an introduction. And then the council would make a ruling and vote on it. Does that answer your question, John?
Yeah, I was just looking. So it's me, and Scott, and then Art's on the police committee. I'm not sure who else is on that. You know?
I believe I'm on the personnel committee. So Jim's on the police committee. So we need to talk about that. Let's let Andy and I have a discussion of how we set up the boards and the review committees. So
Okay.
it is different than just a admin personnel. We do have police representatives on the committee. So let Andy and I talk about that, talk to Carmen, and we'll get back with everybody on that. Okay. All right. Anything else? Can I have roll call, please?
Michael Hillman,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Jack Harmon,
Yes.
Bob Boland,
Yes.
John Curtis,
Yes.
Art Cacavelli,
Yes.
Jim Clark.
Yes.
All right. Motion passes. All right. It is now 7:13. Without anything else, we adjourn the meeting. Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
Good work.
Thank you.
Good night,
Night.
everyone.
Good night, all.
Night.